All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We're really excited to be able to have the Quad Cities Corporate Games. This is the first one. It's our inaugural year. Looking forward to going through all of the details of the games. And I'm going to share my screen or my camera here for you so you can see me for a little bit. But my name is Matt Beatty. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Iowa Sports Foundation. I know I haven't met a lot of you. Some of you have talked on the phone. We're just really excited to be having this meeting, especially after the year that we've had. We've been planning this for a couple of years now to have this event, and we really wish we could be doing this meeting in person. It's one of those things where it's a good time for us to get to know everybody and for everybody to know each other, do some networking. But we're also good at Zoom, so why not just play it safe? We'll do it virtual this time, and then in the future we'll plan on having this as an in-person meeting for next year. But with us today from our staff is our CEO of the Iowa Sports Foundation, Chuck Long. We also have a couple additional staff members of the Quad Cities Corporate Games team, Sarah Walljasper from our office here, and then Cole McLeod from Davenport Parks and Rec. So you'll hear from Cole and Sarah throughout the presentation. You don't want to listen to me for the whole time, I promise. And then this summer, we'll also have an intern named Cole. So a couple of Coles will be working for us. And we've got a couple other part-time staff that'll be assisting. So hopefully you'll have plenty of opportunities to get to know all of us throughout the summer. But before we get started, Chuck will introduce you and have you say a few words.
Thank you, Matt. It's great to be on with all of you today. Welcome and good morning. We are as Matt mentioned, we are in our first year, our first summer of the Quad City Corporate Games and the challenges. Just to give you a brief history, we started in Des Moines 6 years ago, and we've built up to over 75 companies over time. Pandemic scaled that back a little bit, but we feel like it's going to get back up. And then 3 years after that, we're going into year 3 of the Corporate Games, which is the Iowa City, Cedar Rapids area. We usually have around 35 to 40 companies in that a year. And now we're starting off with about 20 companies in the Quad Cities, which, as Matt mentioned at the beginning, is really good. Our original goal was around 15, and we've exceeded that. Considering it's a pandemic, with the pandemic, we feel like we're off to a good start in the Quad Cities. So this was a Matt Beatty baby back in the day. He really formed this corporate game operation and built the website, and he had some team members along the way to help him. But really, he got it off the ground 6 years ago in Des Moines. Now it's running pretty smoothly. Now you're going to have some questions, obviously, being the first year, and there'll be some bumps in the road just getting it off the ground, but we have it up and running pretty well right now. So we have a really good team in place. But anyway, I will stop talking. We have a good charity partner that will be introduced in a minute, but thank you for being on today. Thank you for joining your company up. We're going to have a great summer and a lot to choose from, both non-competitive and competitive sports. So good luck. Let's have a great summer. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate that. And as Chuck mentioned, we've been doing the corporate games. This is year 6 for us overall that we've been doing that. And the impact that we've seen is just amazing as it's grown. It's so hard to put into words. It's a lot of intangible things, a lot of things. If you were following some of our marketing throughout the winter, we had some testimonials from our other corporate games, and just the stories that we hear from people, the impact it's had on their lives. And part of that this year, and hopefully we'll spread the word and we'll make this bigger and better event as we go. But as we've talked about, we've been dealing with the pandemic. The light is getting brighter at the end of the tunnel, at least on the Iowa side. I'm not sure on the Illinois side, but we're able to all get vaccinated at this point, as long as you can get an appointment. And so there's a lot of excitement, and we're ready. We hope you are too. We'll be bringing some fun sports and events. We'll be doing them in a safe manner. We do have some safety guidelines in place, but we know, especially now, it's very fluid. So we're going to be kind of keeping an eye on that as we go. We may make some changes, but in general, we're excited to have some normalcy back in our lives. And we've learned a few things along the way, especially this last year with our other corporate games events, that I think will be a benefit to the Quad Cities. some virtual opportunities that we'll have, and just ways that we can continue to connect with people and get more people involved. So before we officially get started, I do want to take a moment to thank our partners for the Quad Cities Corporate Games. This group on the screen here spent the past 2 years helping plan this event, and without them, it would absolutely not be possible. So we got Davenport Parks and Recreation, Bettendorf Parks and Recreation, Moline Parks and Rec, and Rock Island. They really helped bring everybody to the table, which was great. And then Visit Quad Cities, they've been phenomenal and helping us with getting facilities, getting partnerships lined up, making the connections that we need to really make this successful. So I want to thank them, and they're also going to be sponsoring our medals. So if you get one of the cool medals this year, their logo is going to be on it. So really great partnership we've had with everybody and with all the communities in the Quad Cities. So, but next we're going to go ahead and introduce you to our charity partner, the Children's Therapy Center of the Quad Cities. Angie is here, who will tell you a little bit more about their organization, and a portion of every company entry fee will be donated to the Children's Therapy Center to help support their work.
Thanks, Matt. I'm just so excited to be here, and we are so grateful that the Quad Cities Corporate Games has chosen us as the charity partner for this inaugural event. For those of you who may not know about us, we are a 501c3 pediatric outpatient rehab clinic. We just celebrated our 72nd anniversary on March 14th. So we've been around for a long time, helping kids throughout Eastern Iowa and Western Illinois with developmental disabilities and delays achieve their highest level of independence. We provide physical, occupational, speech, and feeding therapy. We see kids from birth all the way up to age 21 if they need our help. And the one thing I think I'm most proud of in our 72-year history is that we have never turned a child away due to the family's inability to pay for needed services. So it's events like this that help us keep our doors open and allow us to keep helping kids in the Quad Cities. The last year has been a huge challenge for our organization, as I'm sure it's been for most of your businesses and people throughout the country and the world. But we've seen a huge increase in referrals the last 12 months due to the fact that people are losing jobs and their health insurance benefits, and these kids still need help. So we're actually hiring for 2 more positions right now. We've got wait lists for occupational therapy. We're getting close to 100 kids on a wait list for occupational therapy, and we're well over 50 for speech therapy at this point. So events like this, additional revenue like this type of fundraiser, they help us keep our doors open and help us to keep helping these kids throughout the Quad Cities. So we are just so grateful and excited to be a part of this. And I just want to thank all of you for including us and for being part of it this year.
Awesome. Thanks, Angie. That's great. We're really excited to be able to partner with, an organization that does so much, for children and everything. So this is a great thing for us to really appreciate being connected with you guys.
It's awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah. All right. So next we're going to move into our first event. We're not going to talk through every event individually, but the blood donation challenge is a little unique. And so we like to have some community challenges that are part of the corporate games. It certainly looks good, for companies to be involved in the community beyond just getting to have fun and play. And so this is an opportunity that companies can, share out there that this is what we're helping do in the community. And Rachel will probably talk a little bit more about this, but in general, from what we know, blood supplies are usually lower in the summer. You have less people donating. So we started working with some organizations at our other corporate games to help, boost that supply in the summer. It's been a really good partnership. And so it was just a natural fit talking to Rachel and Mississippi Valley Regional Blood Center to set up this event. So I'll let Rachel talk, and then I might cover a little bit more detail with it before we move on. So Rachel, go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you all today. And I love that there's been so much talk about how exciting this opportunity is to come to the Quad Cities. I got to speak with Matt about 3 years ago when this was being talked about happening in Cedar Rapids, and kind of got to start that program there. It's been really successful and was anxiously waiting for this to come to the Quad Cities. And so we are also very excited it's here. And again, thanks so much that you included a blood donation component in the challenge. So just as Matt said, summer is a time of year where we traditionally see a decline in our donations. A lot of that is actually because of high schools, and we're not able to come in and work with them, partner with them to host. COVID has really even thrown another challenge in our collections. So the fact that this challenge happens from May to the end of July, it really is important that blood donations come in during that time. So we hope that this will be a fun challenge, and also want to share with you how amazing it is that you're going to be sending in donors during this time, because those blood donations stay right here in the Quad Cities. So you really are making a community impact as we supply all the local hospitals here with their blood products. So I won't go into a ton of detail about blood donation eligibility. I'll really save that for maybe individual meetings. If people want to reach out to me after this meeting, I'd love to talk in more detail about that. But I did just want to share some basic information kind of moving forward about how we can go about either scheduling a blood drive or working to share information with your donors about how to come into some of our donor centers and donate blood on your company's behalf. So really, because of blood donation, you can give every 8 weeks. Really, it's important that you contact me sooner than later if you're hoping to schedule a mobile blood drive. And a mobile blood drive is when we actually bring the blood drive to you. So we can set up in a space inside, or we can utilize our mobile donor bus. Our mobile donor bus has been it's been heavily used during the pandemic because we don't have to worry about coming inside a facility. So those are 2 options for you and your organization to host blood drives right on site. Or you can also come into one of our donor centers and credit a donation at one of our centers. We have 3 in the Quad Cities. So we have one in Davenport, West Davenport, and then one in Moline. We have created some posters for you that will be hung at all of our donor centers, where it will list your organization as a participant in the challenge. And then you would just need to identify your name on there and a code that's associated with your group in order for your organization to be credited. So again, if you already, work with us for a blood drive, you already have a code. But if you don't, you'll just need to contact me so we can get that set up in the system. So I know my information's all listed on the webpage for you to contact me. But again, I'm going to really encourage you sooner than later to give me a call or shoot me an email, and I can help answer any questions and get your blood drive scheduled.
All right. Thanks, Rachel. And yes, we also, I don't know if Sarah's done it yet, but she'll be sending out an email here during this presentation. It's kind of our little announcement to say our website is live, the Corporate Games Manager piece that we'll go over later. And in there, we'll not only have Sarah and Cole's contact information for questions for Corporate Games, we'll also have Rachel's in there too. So you'll be able to send an email right from there if you'd like. But kind of gives a little more detail of this. You may wonder why this runs May 1st to July 31st, where the rest of the Corporate Games basically is June and July. Basically what Rachel said, with being able to donate every 8 weeks, we wanted to make sure that we could get people twice. So that allows that to happen. It's a separate award. We don't do points for the blood donation challenge. It'll be totally separate. Another opportunity to win an award that'll be presented at our award ceremony. We'll talk about our award ceremony quite a bit, but we're not going to tell you what it is yet because we're still figuring that out. But it'll be sometime in maybe August, early September. Working with Visit Quad Cities to come up with an idea. We want to include it as part of something else that's going on, just to make for something fun and give people a reason to come and enjoy the award ceremony. So, but as listed there, there'll be credit for each donation made by eligible employee. That can be done at the blood centers, as Rachel mentioned. If you have a mobile drive, we allow that to credit anybody. So if you have friends or family that come to it, they don't have to work for your company to count. We obviously want to drive donations, and so we're trying to make that give an incentive there for companies to host those blood drives. So again, if you have questions, let us know, let Rachel know, and we'll help you out and get that going. So thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to get into some of the details for the corporate games here. First, we're going to talk about some eligibility. So I get a spelling error on my next screen. I caught it there, but Cole, why don't you go ahead and talk about eligibility a little bit?
All right, so who is eligible to participate? So the corporate games is for your full or part-time employees. Interns and retirees are also allowed to participate. Many of our events are family friendly, and they can we'll have information on our website for those family friendly events. So yeah, as you can see here, here's our sports calendar. So specifically, all our sports or our events are going to be in June or in July of this summer. It's a mix of weekday, evening, and weekend events. The calendar is complete and available in the admin toolkit on the Corporate Games website. Speaking of the website, I cannot stress enough how important the site is for information on the corporate events or corporate games events. In most cases, the website can answer any questions that your employees may have, from time, location, when a schedule will be available, the approximate time needed to participate. The events pages were designed to answer the common questions that we have received over the years from the Des Moines and Corridor corporate games. We will also keep the rules page updated with any changes in protocols and specifically with related to COVID-19. If questions come up that cannot be answered online, we're always happy to help out, and it might lead us to additional information online for that specific event.
All right, so let's take a few minutes and go through the event types that are offered as part of the Quad Cities corporate games. We have several different events, mostly non-competitive this year. A lot of what we're doing is kind of a non-competitive variety. And events that have unlimited participation, the nice thing is for these, they don't require any intervention on the part of the employee or the administrator to let us know how many people will be attending. As we'll get into later with our Corporate Games Manager software on the website, that's where people declare interest for events. And so that's what we prefer, that people at least say, hey, I'm interested, or I want to do the cycling ride or the fitness walk. That way we just have an idea of how many people to expect. We know that not everybody necessarily will show up. That's kind of the nature of these events. It's easy to say you're interested and then find out later maybe you can't go. So, but it definitely helps us with our planning to have a rough idea of how many people will be there. So there's one thing to note too, there's no penalty for people not showing up for these events. If you say you were planning to be there, but you're not, we don't penalize companies for that. We do have some penalty things built in with the team sports I'll get into here in a minute, but nothing for any of these events. So in addition to the in-person events, we will have several virtual participation events. And most of our virtual events will have a time window, say Monday through Friday of a given week, like the cycling tour ride, fitness walk, interval class. This allows employees to do these events on their own schedule. And it's a great way to involve everyone at the office. All of these really are great ways for that, but especially the virtual events. They're not worth quite as many points, but it gets people involved, gets them part of the corporate games. Then, you know, that means they get their account set up in Corporate Games Manager. I'll talk later about some emails that we send out, just some updates for the summer, gets them really involved. And that's what the big thing is. That's kind of what draws people in and gets them excited and then creates some excitement around the office. So just getting involved is huge. And those in-person events, of course, are worth more points than the virtual, but it's another great way to get anybody involved. It's easy to come out for the fitness walk, take a group picture, walk for a while with everybody, have a good time, and that just usually leads to people wanting to do more, which is fantastic. The Learn and Earn, I'm going to talk about that briefly. It's a webinar series. We'll do a couple during the summer that focus on health and wellness topics. They last about 30 minutes. They'll be around lunchtime. They can be watched live, but limitations with things like Zoom. We can't take everybody. We should be able to take most. We may be able to take everybody this year. We'll see. But it is limited in numbers that can attend live, but they certainly can attend live. But we also have the ability, after that time, about a week, we'll have it open where people can watch a recording and earn their company points that way. And you might be wondering how they earn points for that. We'll get into that a little bit later, but basically we kind of have a check-in system that we use that helps people log that they participated. So if they're participating live in those Learn and Earns, they'll have the opportunity to ask some questions to our presenters, which is great. And then more information on these, as Cole mentioned, on the website, we try to list everything in pretty good detail. So you can certainly go to the website and look at the Learn and Earn page to learn a little bit more about that. We do have one competitive individual event this year, and that is age group based. So we'll have different age groups for men and women with that, basically 10-year age groups, what we do up to 50 plus. And when your employees are in Corporate Games Manager subs their account, it'll only show them the age group and the gender that they're eligible for. So the date that we use for the age determined day is generally the day of the event. So with basketball shooting, it'll be that day, whatever age they are that day. All right, so team sports have a number on the limit of participants per company team, as well as a limit on the number of teams per company. Logistical wise, we can't leave them unlimited just because we have to be able to plan for the number of courts, the number of bag sets, everything else that we need for these events. And so we do have, and obviously they're all different, and we have a sport roster limits, deadlines, and schedule availability documents. Very long name, but it covers everything that we have in our admin toolkit. And on the next screen, I'll show you an example of that, what it looks like. But in the admin toolkit, like I said, you can find it there. It lists the number of people that can be on a team, how many teams you can have, the type of team, whether it's open, co-ed, male, female, whatnot, is all on there, as well as a deadline for scheduling. I'll get into that in detail on the next slide here. But we basically ask for companies to tell us yes or no if they're providing teams. And so those deadlines are set on Wednesdays, roughly 2 weeks before a sport takes place. And then we take that information, and by Friday we have a schedule posted, and we email that out to the company admins. And so we'll basically direct you then to download a copy on the website. And having those schedules out a couple weeks in advance allows companies to be close enough to the date of the event to know whether or not they have enough interest for a team, but also far enough away from the event that participating employees can see that schedule and plan accordingly. It never fails that someone will have signed up to participate, and once the schedule comes, they're like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. That gives you all a little bit of time to maybe find another team member on there. Let's see. So our virtual events that are team events work a little bit differently than the in-person team events. For example, the scavenger hunt doesn't have a number of employees, a limit on the number of employees that can participate. I'm not going to go into all the details on that, but basically what it is that as long as one employee finds the QR code that we'll have posted somewhere in the Quad Cities, that's how the company earns points. But you can have employees working on the back end, and that's what makes it virtual, that we'll have clues that go out during the week of the scavenger hunt, and that we'll put online, put out on our website, and then people can try to figure it out based on those clues and come up to figure out where the code is, and then have someone go out and check it in. So for Name That Tune, it's going to be similar to what we'll do for our in-person trivia event, where the teams are limited in size, but there's no actual schedule for this event. We'll send out a PIN number or a PIN for each company to use to access an online answer sheet during the competition. And then Burst Your Thirst, Sarah will cover that here in a few minutes. So as I mentioned, the event limits, it's called event limits important dates on there, as you can see. And basically, this is an example that may be the complete one, but it may have changed a little bit. So to go grab the one on the website for the full details. But again, lists the roster limits for each event, the date that we need to know if you'll have a team or not, as well as when the schedule will be available. And I'll show you a little bit later where in the admin toolkit this is, so you can look at it there. And then the limits are also listed in Corporate Games Manager, which we'll of course go through here in a little bit. A little side note to this too, we may do some hybrid schedules for some events with brackets. And what I mean by that is we have two divisions this year for companies, large company group and then a smaller company group. And we want to have a fun competition. You know, we don't have quite as many companies as maybe you'd want to have normally in the first year. So we may combine sometimes in the brackets. You'll still only earn points that go towards your competitive group. So we'll definitely keep it fair. But at the same time, it might be more fun to have a little bit bigger bracket and get a little more opportunity to participate. So everything that we do that's bracketed basically is a double elimination tournament. So as you may see on the website where it says how long will a competition last, we tend to put that in so people can plan their evenings. And for example, in dodgeball, if you go 0-2, you might not be there very long. But if you keep winning, or maybe you lose your first one and wind up on the backside of a bracket, if you're familiar with the double elimination bracket, the people who lose early and then keep winning usually have a lot more games. And so they might be there a while playing. But basically, we list on pages if you keep winning, you'll be there till roughly this time. We have a rough idea of how long it'll go. So that's kind of how that works a little bit. I mentioned earlier, we'll talk more about the point system, but when it comes to team sports that have schedules, we do have a penalty system in there, and that's not if you don't provide a team. If you tell us no, that you're not going to have a team, no worries, not a problem. If you tell us you're going to have a team and then a team no shows, that's when we usually assess the penalty points at that point, because we want to have a good competition. We want to, you know, have a schedule put together, and if teams don't show up, then that kind of makes it not as much fun with the competition. So we definitely want to encourage companies, if you tell us yes that you're going to have a team, that you will have a team there. All right, so I've kind of alluded to this a few different times, employee check-in and earning points. And so this is kind of where this all rolls together. Employees check in at every event they attend, whether it's in person or virtual. And this allows us to do a few different things. It confirms that the employees have signed the corporate games waiver, or they've agreed to that. And it assists us in reporting attendance at events and earning points, of course. And so events like Fitness Walk and yoga, when you check in, that's how we assess points for the employee to earn points for the company. And the event that attendance is also available to you as company administrators through our corporate games manager. We'll show that to you, but it's an online system, so it's all built into our website, and that way it's tracking it constantly. So if there's a virtual event going on the week of Monday through Friday and you want to check to see how many employees have checked in, you'll be able to do that in real time. And maybe that's kind of the push saying, hey, we need to get more people to do this. And so gives you instant feedback there. And then also we've seen in our other corporate games events, there's some companies that like to see an attendance report afterwards. They want to see who attended. Some companies use this as a benefit towards insurance, or maybe towards a credit for insurance. And so that's another good thing to have, this ability to see that. And so as we mentioned before, you know, it's nice if employees declare interest for events for our planning purposes. The biggest thing is making sure that they have their account set up in Corporate Games Manager, even if they haven't declared interest for an event, because when they show up, you'll see in that picture, people checking in. Basically, if they have an account in Corporate Games Manager, they're going to show up when they show up that day. They're going to show up in the system. And if they don't have an account, that's when it takes a little bit longer, because now we got to get them set up. We might have to pull them off the side, take a little bit of time to get all their information in. And so we definitely encourage people, have that account set up before you come to the event, because I'll do an example of checking a little bit later, but it's very quick, very, very quick. And so employees will have two different options to check in. As I mentioned, the system's online and it is mobile, tied right to the website. So they can check in on one of the devices as provided. And this year with COVID, we'll probably handle those devices ourselves or our volunteers, and basically just come up, give us your last name, we'll type it in. But people can do it themselves too with their phone. And so that's the nice thing, is you see that QR code up there, and you can't use it right now because none of you have an account in Corporate Games Manager yet. But if you happen to come back and watch this again, you can test that out. It is live and it is working right now. And so you could probably try it with your phone and show basically all smartphones, I think, with their camera feature. You just point the camera at it and it'll pull up the web page that it belongs to or it's attached to. So we'll go through that again, like I said, later, a little bit of example with it, but pretty simple. Checking in is easy as if you click that QR code, type in your last name on the check-in, find yourself, click a button. There's a green bar that shows the successful check-in. And if you're doing that on your phone, just show it to our volunteers or staff at the check-in table to make sure that we did get you checked in. And if employees check in multiple times for an event, they're not going to earn more points. So it's always a fun thing to try, but it just overrides the check-in. Is all it does each time. So it only shows up once on our side. But if they're not sure if they got checked in or not, it doesn't hurt to do it again. As I mentioned, you'll be able to report reports on that, and just another great way to be able to track attendance on your side as well as ours. All right, Sarah, we got Burst Your Thirst.
All right. So as Matt said earlier, Burst Your Thirst Challenge will be one of our virtual events we offer to our participants. So the Burst Your Thirst Challenge is administered through Live Healthy Iowa, and the registration will open on May 10th, so about a month from now. And this event is a little different than others where employees will, where they declare interest in the Corporate Games Manager. They will actually register through the Live Healthy Iowa website. And so since this is an existing challenge offered through Live Healthy Iowa, we guess you could say we shoehorn our competition a little into an existing structure. So companies form their own teams, but the team aspect isn't as important for the corporate games with the Burst Your Thirst Challenge. You can use the teams internally if you wish to have a competition among employees. Company admins will receive a group ID and a subsidy code by May 10th that makes this activity no cost when participants register. So we do encourage you to make sure you highlight to your employees that the challenge, you include the group ID and the subsidy code so participants don't get charged. And we will allow flyers with that will be available to print and will be able to be customized to include those codes. So everyone who signs up will receive a water bottle if they choose to use during the challenge, and the water bottles will be packaged by teams in the company and will be available for pickup at the fitness walk. While we do encourage everyone to participate in the fitness walk, companies can designate employees designate one employee to pick up the water bottles for multiple teams. So for the points, to earn company points, employees must record at least once per week for 5 of the 6 weeks to count towards the company participation percentage. And points will be given per 1% of the company that completes the challenge, and placing points will be awarded based on the percent of eligible employees in each company that complete the challenge. So it is important that we have a fairly accurate count of the number of company employees. So if you want to go over to the Burst Your Thirst rules on our website for more information and examples of the point system.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, it's a little complicated how we give out points for this, but we've learned over time that we want to make it as fair as we can, and every company is a different size. So in order to make it fair, that's been the best way to do it. And this is a really easy way to get employees involved. It's just a water hydration challenge, and they get to, like Sarah said, track once a week for 5 of the 6 weeks of the challenge. That makes them, considers them completed as far as the event is concerned. And so it's another great way to get people involved. Again, Sarah mentioned, it's through Live Healthy Iowa, which is one of our partners. We offer it for free to Corporate Games employees, and we'll show you when we get into Corporate Games Manager how to, there will be a little link that you can use to help access that. They will have to probably, if they've never done this before, some companies may have done this in the past as part of Live Healthy Iowa, so you may have account set up on that side. But once it's set up, we have an ability to kind of tunnel you over between our site and the Live Healthy site to make it a little bit easier for people to record. And we will send out more information too on that as we get closer. So don't get overwhelmed with that information right now. We do kind of we definitely handhold as we go through here to make sure you have the information and continue to feed it to you so you know what's going on. All right, so volunteers. When you signed up your company for the Corporate Games, you probably saw the question on if you'd like to provide volunteers for the Corporate Games. And so this is why we were asking that. Basically, companies earn 50 volunteer points for spot filled. And we do that, it's more than what we offer for participation events, because volunteers are very much vital to the success of the Corporate Games. And we just, we need help occasionally with a smaller staff, helping with athlete check-in, assisting with results, things like that. So nothing that requires any special knowledge, can be easily trained. And we've seen from our other corporate games events, we get people who just volunteer for corporate games. They're not necessarily interested in participating, but they want to be involved for their company and they love getting out and talking to people and helping us out. We've gotten to know several people because they come to a lot of events and help us out, which is great. So while it isn't required to participate in the volunteering piece of the games, the companies that are required or do participate, they get rewarded with points, as I mentioned. And each company that agrees to provide volunteers will be given required spots to fill. And it's not very many, especially this year in our first year as we look through. We don't have a ton of volunteer needs that we have. So we'll make it pretty easy for everybody. And if you say we have the two divisions, Division 1 is the larger companies. And so what we're looking at, you can see on the screen there, we expect to ask for 4 volunteers from the larger companies that participate in the volunteering program. And that's over the course of the summer. So we do things in pairs. So we'll probably ask you to provide 2 volunteers 2 different times. And that's it. So pretty easy to do. But there's other ways to earn additional volunteer points. Not every volunteer opportunity will be assigned to companies ahead of time, and some will be listed as open. And so a couple weeks out from the event, we will post them on our website and we'll let administrators know that we have some volunteer spots available. And so companies that are participating in the volunteer program, you can't do this if you're not. Those that are participating, they can go on there and then claim these spots for their company. And then they get additional volunteer spots and can earn additional points that way. And we also allow companies to provide bonus volunteers, we call them. And so if you have say you have an event, you have 2 volunteers signed up or assigned to check in at the fitness walk, for example, but you have 3 or 4 employees show up instead of the 2. We'll give you points for that too, as long as they're helping. Don't send us 30 volunteers for 2 spots. That's where we, get a little, it gets a little difficult because then you have a lot of people that don't have anything to do. So we really don't want to encourage that. But if you've got, you have 2 volunteer spots and you have 4 or 5 people or 3 or 4 people that want to come and help, great. We'll find something to do hopefully for them and they can earn points in the process. So we'll make it fun. When we get into Corporate Games Manager, we'll show you where you can officially list your companies providing volunteers. Of course, you had that in the original registration, but that is more of a kind of a placeholder, I guess, is what I'd call it for us. That helps us determine how interested companies are in participating in the volunteer piece. And so that's helped us build those numbers you see on the screen for the 4 volunteers for Division 1 and 2 for Division 2. And so once you're in Corporate Games Manager, and I'll show you how to do this, you basically at that point tell us yes or no again. And we've had companies that say no initially. Once they hear about what it is, they'll say yes. So it's nice for us too to be able to do that and get some more companies involved. And then within that setup, you'll also be able to select top 5 preferences for events to volunteer at. You may not know with this being the first year which ones you're interested in, so you don't necessarily have to fill those out. That doesn't disqualify you from having volunteers, but it's just an opportunity that we give to let you preference certain events. And so it's, of course, the disclaimer is there's no guarantee that you'll get your preferred events, but we do use these preferences to assign the spots. And it's a timestamped thing. So once you put them in and hit save, that timestamps on our side too. So probably the first company that puts in their preferences, whatever their first preference is, they're probably going to get that event. That's kind of how that usually works. And so then we can look at it from there to try to give you at least one of your preferences the best we can. But yeah, the sooner you fill it out, the more likely you are to get at least 1 or 2 preferred events. And these preferences are due April 30th. We'll again send out some information as we go, and then basically after April 30th, we will go ahead and assign the volunteer opportunities to companies. And by early the next week, we'll have that first week of May there, we'll have those opportunities out and posted, and you'll be able to see them. That way you can start working on getting some volunteers. And we've got some ways built into Corporate Games Manager that'll help you determine if employees are interested in volunteering or not. So we'll show you that here in a little bit. And it usually works pretty well. Most companies that we work with that do the volunteer piece fill them pretty easily. Not everybody, but most do. Also, the big part of this is we mentioned before that family and friends generally can be involved in the events but not earn points. This is the one spot that they can. So we want to encourage volunteerism. So it could simply be, an employee and a spouse filling your volunteer spots. It could be an employee and one of their kids, as long as, they're 16 or older. We do want them a little bit older to help out. They can fill those required spots. So it's another nice way we can, make it easier to get those volunteer spots filled. All right, so I'm going to jump on the website here and start going through some of our administrator tools. Go ahead and pull it up here quick. All right. So hopefully everybody can see the website now. Got that up here. So first thing I'm going to do is go into the Corporate Games Admin Toolkit. So you can see on the website, again, I'll start at the beginning. This is our homepage. A lot of information. If you haven't been through the website, please do. Please go through and see. We try to, communication is huge for us. So we tried really hard to make sure all the information that we have available is on the website. A lot of the questions we get, we're happy to answer them, but most of them people could probably find them. If you don't want to wait for an answer from us, it's likely on the website somewhere. So the admin toolkit is where we're going to go here, which has a lot of different tools available for the for you as company administrators. I'll just kind of go through some of these highlights here. And first thing is our point system. Now every event page on the rules has the points for that particular event, but here's a place where it's all kind of in one spot together. So we have everything listed here. The point system, we have things divided out into major team competition, and then we have the unique ones like the scavenger hunt or name that tune trivia. Doubles competition, bags, disc golf, spike ball, pickleball. They have kind of their own unique point system. Everything is built with the participation points. I'll go back up here, make it a little easier to see. But every company that participates gets participation points, say in these team events. And then if you place in the top 4 in the division brackets, you get extra points based on that. So for example, bowling, if you have a lot of good bowlers, you can earn a lot of points in bowling because we have men's, women's, and co-ed teams there. That's a good example there. I'm going to go down to some individual events, participation events. We've talked about our fitness walk, nature walk, yoga, things like that. You can see we do 25 points for those for each person that shows up. And again, unlimited. So get as many people there as you can, and they earn points that way. Basketball shooting has the points for participating. And the nice thing is there's 2 pieces of that competition. So you get participation points if you do the free throw and the 3-point shooting. And then you can also earn placing points in both events. Burst Your Thirst, as we mentioned, this does have a nice example. It'll explain it a little bit better as to how that works. So that should help a little bit with earning points there. And we know we have some companies, engineering firms, whatnot, they love to dissect the point system to see where they can maximize their points. And that's great. You know, that kind of makes it another competition within the competition. The virtual events, as we mentioned, are worth a little bit less points. We do have that listed here. We've got our volunteer points. And we also have the penalty points we mentioned for no shows only. Not if you tell us you don't have a team, you don't have to worry about it. You of course don't get participation points. You don't get placing points. It's 0 for that. But if you say you're going to have a team, say for tug of war, and they no show, then the penalty points are basically the opposite of participation points is how we do that. And then of course we have the blood donation challenge. We have that listed here as well, just to make it clear, because we do get asked sometimes if there's points for that, and we just want to make it clear it's a totally separate event. So also we won't go too deep in this, but I do want to mention the Corporate Games Manager Admin Manual. I'll go through basically everything that's in that admin manual here in a little bit. But if you ever have questions, you're not sure, that's a good place to look. It kind of explains things. The Corporate Games Manager is pretty intuitive. It was built to be very, very simple, just to make it easy for everybody to use, even if you've never used it before. So, but we do have a manual there. We also have information for employees. That's also on the homepage that employees can find that, a very basic tutorial on how to get signed up as a participant. The sport roster limits, deadlines, and schedule availability document that I talked about is right there. And so that should be all updated with all the details, when schedules will be available and whatnot. So everything's there. It also, questions we get a lot, the difference between open and co-ed, we have definitions right down here on what that is. And so co-ed essentially is equal number of men and women, except for bowling and tug of war. but more women than men are always allowed for co-ed events. That definitely comes up too as a question. So for example, sand volleyball team, it's co-ed. It could be 4 women playing out there. There doesn't have to be any men, but there can't be any more than 2 men basically for that 4-person team. So, and then just a little definition down here to explain the company deadline and how that works with the date for when the schedule when we need to know yes or no at 5 p.m. And then the schedule is posted by the schedule available date there. All right, and then we do have, every sport page does have its list of rules. We have a comprehensive list here that lists every sport if you'd like to see that. Generally, I would recommend going to the specific event pages because if we do have changes with COVID, things like that, we do our best to make sure that we're thorough and changing information everywhere it's listed. Sometimes that can be difficult if we have it listed in multiple places. So the rule pages on the specific event pages are definitely the best place to look there. As Cole mentioned earlier, our sport event calendar, we've got the full thing listed. You can see that it's got, if there's specific information for certain divisions, that's listed as well. Otherwise, it's got the basic information on there. And in italics, we do have our virtual events. So you can kind of see what the time frames are for some of these things. And another big thing is promotional information, ways that you can promote to your employees. And we'll get into some strategies a little bit later, but we do have some materials that you can use. We have a flyer, a poster, we got table tents, a sample email. I'm not going to open all these, but I will open up some of them. Oops, I'm going to open up the flyer. It's a little bit smaller file, might be easier to load. And so it won't show quite as well on here, but there's a gap here. This is where you can, when you download the PDF, you can click here and put your own logo in. So it's customized for your company. We'll talk about this company code piece in a little bit, but basically every company has a code for employees to go into the website and sign up. That gets you locked into your, gets them hooked into your company in Corporate Games Manager. And so we'll have those codes that you'll see. You'll be able to type those in and put whatever you need to put there. That way they have that information. And again, you can print those off and hand them out. We've got posters you can put up around the office if you've got people in the office. Right now we've got table tents if you've got a lunchroom or a place that you want to put those. And they're all formatted to make them easy to, where you can put in the company code and cut them in half here and fold them up. So we've got some nice options there. We have a sample email, and we can't take credit for this. It was actually someone from our Des Moines Corporate Games had sent this out to his employees. And I thought it was a great thing to have. So you can see down there, if company created resources, if people have things they come up with, we'd love to know about them if they're going to help people, recruit to their companies. And so this is a document that can be edited. Basically, it's just a Word document. You can see, and we've kind of highlighted some things you definitely want to edit because they're general information. But it's a good way to, just a way to get started. If you're able to email your employees, which we found is a really big piece of this. If you're able to send out an email, here's a good place to start on what maybe to send out. And you can change this however you'd like. But we put that on there as just an option there. We also have all of these flyers, posters, table tents, all of they're made in InDesign with our marketing person, Corey. And so we have all of them in a Dropbox folder that you can access. So if you want to make your own materials, you've got access to all the pieces of them here. And as well as you can see these are promotional, basically for if you have video screens in your office and want to put something on the TV screens, you can do that. We've got those included in the Dropbox folder. And then we also have our logo, both of our logos on here if you'd like to use them in anything. We'll talk about a little bit later apparel. People have asked us if they can use a logo, and absolutely, it's a walking billboard for us. So we're definitely not going to deny that. Give you that. You can definitely use that logo, and we love seeing that on company shirts too when it's got the Corporate Games logo. All right. One second here, I'll get back to our presentation. Okay, so I've mentioned a few times some communications, and kind of what I was talking about, there's a couple different things that we do. And one of the big ones is during the games, as we get going here, we'll send out regular communications to admins, to you. you can see one of those on the far right there as an example. Basically, I like to call it, we handhold a little bit. We don't do everything, of course. We can't within the companies, but we can certainly give you the tools to make it easier for you as an administrator. And so you can see there, basically, we'll send out that email. It's on Mondays. It will say, you know, what participation deadlines are coming up this week so that you're aware of it. Any specific information for certain events that maybe is a little unique. We might list something in there. I don't know what off the top of my head that would be for this year, but that's, especially if we get questions about some things, sometimes it's better if we just put it in an email. So I want to make sure that you get these emails on a regular basis. We won't send them out weekly right away. That'll start in May, but we will send some out as we get going here a little bit. Also has a list of what events are coming up this week and maybe, again, some other information. In addition to that email, we send out an employee email, and that email goes to everybody who has an account from your companies in Corporate Games Manager. And so that'll, again, it's on Mondays. Basically, we send the employee email out at one time and then the administrator email out like a half hour later. And so that you'll get both of them. The employees will just get the employee update, and it's kind of a fun little update. It's a great way for us to help kind of drive interest. We will have some pictures that we'll post in there. We'll do a little recap with the top finishers in the divisions. We'll put the leaderboard on there, how companies are doing with the point system. And we found throughout the summer that leaderboard is, because it shows you maybe the top 3, and then you click it to see the rest of the companies on our website. And that button is the most clicked. Everybody wants to see how their company's doing. The open rate of those emails goes up through the summer. And so we've found this to be a really good way to help engage people and get them excited about the games and get them involved. Even if they haven't done an event yet, if they have an account set up, then they're going to start seeing these emails and start seeing what the games actually is. And so this has been a big part of what we do for sure. And these come through our marketing system. Robly is what we send that. We did a division announcement a couple weeks ago through Robly. So if your company was signed up at that time, you would have gotten that email or should have gotten it. If you did not, please let us know. Feel free to let Sarah or Cole know. We will make sure to look into that. We would hopefully have your email address already in our system, but there's other reasons sometimes too, like the IT, it might need to be whitelisted on your company side. And so we can go through that with you a little bit and make sure we're getting those. And as we get going, we will check too. We can see if email's been opened. And so we may follow up with you just to say, hey, are you getting these emails? And we want to make sure you do. The employee emails too, we will post the links to those in Corporate Games Manager. We have a news section in there for people's dashboards, so we'll put a link there. And a lot of times the employee email, we also put in social media. We put that out and maybe with a picture so that it's seen by others as well, and they can see what the corporate games, what's going on with that. All right, Sarah, let's talk about apparel.
All right. So as Matt mentioned earlier, we love seeing companies have company shirts with their logo on it and even the Quad City logo. So we do highly encourage companies to have a company shirt. We definitely don't require it, but it does help identify employees and the companies at events, but it also shows great company pride. As you can see here, we love taking photos. And so these make great photo opportunities for our social media accounts. If you don't follow us already, in the confirmation email that I've sent to all of you, our social media pages will be linked. So if you do put a Quad City Corporate Games logo on your shirt, you can find that in those logos in the admin toolkit, as Matt showed us a little earlier. So you are definitely welcome to do that as well. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And I will say from personal experience that sometimes at events it gets a little crazy with all the teams, and it's nice to know that that's the team in the orange shirts. I can find them real quick to tell them that their game's coming up on court too. So it's been pretty helpful from our end to see those, and it also definitely we like to post those pictures, the team pictures when they got the team shirts and everything else. And so that allows us then to help tag those companies because we know who they are when we go back and add them later. And so it's definitely good all around. If you're able to do the shirts, we don't have any specific requirements for those. Like Sarah mentioned, they're optional. Even for like 3-on-3 basketball, we don't need shirts with numbers or anything. We just go by individuals. And so we try to make it pretty easy on that side. Okay, so we're going to get into Corporate Games Manager next and go through all the functions of the website. And this is kind of the big push here towards the end of the meeting. So if you have questions during this, feel free to ask. We have a question and answer thing. I have that open so we can see it, but we'll give some time for questions afterwards too. So a little rundown of what we're going to go through. We're going to talk about the dashboard. We're going to talk about the administrator functions that you can use. Several different functions that are in there, and then we will do a little example for participant check-in. So let me bring our website back up here. So after this meeting, what we will do is we have to do this manually, so we can't do it right now, but as soon as the meeting's over, all of the company administrators, since you're all new to the system and don't have an account yet, we will send you an invite. We'll go into the system and into your company, and we can send out invites to company administrators. And so you should get an email, I would say within a half hour after we're done here, because that's exactly what Sarah and I are going to do as soon as the meeting's over with, is go through those and get them done. And you should get an invite email. I'm going to show you what one looks like. I invited myself to a different email address. And so you'll basically get this, just welcoming you to the Corporate Games, and your company is registered and you've been invited to join. So very simple email. You'll just hit accept the invitation. And I have a lot of accounts with our Corporate Games Manager, so this doesn't always work for me. Hopefully it works for you. Getting that account set up, it can be a little, might ask you to do this a couple times when you get in, but it does require a password that's at least 8 characters, just so you're aware. I like to use my last name when I do demonstrations. Can't do that on this, it's not long enough. And this is very similar to what your employees will see. It's a little bit different. I will show you that in a little bit here, but you can see I'd mentioned the volunteering piece and being able to find out if employees are interested. We include that right in. It's a required question that they either select no or yes. And so I'm just going to say yes on mine. And now I should have my account set up. And this is where I get in a little trouble because I have multiple accounts. So I'm going to just log in through my regular account, make this easier. And then I'm going to go through the back way, which is actually really nice for us. We have the ability to log in as anybody. So if you're having problems, if an employee's having problems, we can log in as them to see exactly what they're looking like, because they can, you know how technology is sometimes. It's hard for us to know exactly what the issue might be without being able to see what they're seeing. And a lot of times it's very simple. We've had people where they said, I thought I signed up for yoga, but it's not showing up on my dashboard. And so I'll go in and log in as them and say, yoga's on your dashboard, and maybe send them a screenshot of it. So it's, some of the questions usually can be resolved very quickly by us being able to see somebody, what they're seeing. So know that we do have the ability to do it. But when you first sign in, and this will be for any employee, you're going to have the liability waiver. It's a general waiver. Feel free to read through it before you hit agree. And this is what makes you active then in the system once you've agreed to that waiver. And so this, you may have this happen to you as well, where it makes you re-put in your information just to finish setting up that account. It happens to me every time, but I've been told by others that it doesn't happen to them. So, it may happen to you. But you go ahead and do that. And when I know some of you will have multiple admins, we actually encourage you to have multiple admins, but you might not have multiple to start with right now. But whoever is the first admin for a company to log in, they will be taken right to this edit organization screen. This is something that's accessible within your dashboard, but it'll come here first for a couple reasons. And one is we just want to make sure, you know, put your company information in. We don't really use this for anything, but it's something you can have in there. It will show you what division your company is in case you're not sure. It's on the website, but you'll also be able to see it here, and you'll be able to see your company code. And I apparently didn't set a company code for our test company, so I'm going to do that quick on the other end here, just so we have a company code. But that every company will have a company code, and it's a pretty important piece. This is how your employees know how to sign in, or when they log in for the first time, they will have to put in this code, and it allows them to then link up to your company. And we've had it set up in the past where a company, or where you can pull from a drop-down list, and you would be surprised at how many people sign up for the wrong company if they are given the opportunity. So we make sure to put in that code, and it'll give them some feedback too. And so let's see if that worked over here. There we go. Okay, so you can see I now have a company code in there. You may at some point wonder what your company code is as you're getting employees signed in. It's always something that you can access under the edit organization screen or manage organization from the left-hand menu there. And so I'd mentioned earlier about volunteering. This is where you can officially select whether you want to participate in the volunteer program or not. And if you look over to the left, you'll see the menu as it is now. Once I select yes, there will be a volunteer menu that shows up in here as well. And so this is a one-time thing. Once you've selected it, it can't be changed. If you made a mistake, let us know. We can change it. We just don't want people changing it back and forth during the summer. And there's another spot here to ask questions. We give up to 10. I don't think I've seen anybody use more than 3 or 4 on this, but what we ask for is very simple. As far as the employee information, we simply ask for the name, date of birth, gender. Essentially, that's all we ask for, and it's just for organizational purposes, the age group, events, things like that. So if you want to ask other questions like what is your t-shirt size, this is where you can do that. You could ask for a phone number or a cell phone number if you don't have those records of your employees, just to be able to get a hold of them if you need to. So this is where you can decide what kind of questions you like to ask, and then that'll show up on their info screen. So that's another reason we send you there right away, is to go ahead and set those up, some things you might want to know. Now, if you want to go back and add questions, not a big deal. You'll see that, for example, I'm in, sorry, let me get back in to the fake account I set up. Gets a little messy when you do multiple accounts. There we go. Now I'm in the correct account here. And you can see I have a question that came up because I haven't answered that question about the t-shirt. So it does come up on my dashboard that I need to answer that question. And there it is at the bottom. These are open-ended. They can, people can put in the answer any way they want. That's maybe a little bit of a drawback, but we want to keep them open so that you can ask whatever you'd like in there. So I've just got my t-shirt size in now. And we'll go through a few things here for you with the dashboard now and how this looks. So over here is my info, which of course is the screen I was just on. But people can change their password here. If their date of birth is wrong, gender, can fix that over here. Sign up for events. Now this is where they can declare interest for any event they like. And so I'm going to go ahead and declare a few things. It only shows the events they're eligible for. So you notice the women's bowling team is not showing for me because I'm listed as male. So it'll show the co-ed and the men's. And it lists the dates, so you can look at this by the date or the event name. People can go into this at any point and add more events. That's the nice thing. They can add or remove events as they choose. As events happen, they will disappear from that list too, so that you won't have people sign up for events that have already happened. And this screen here, this event questions, is something that can help you. It's another tool that we have, and certain events, especially team events, will have questions listed. And as we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but our sport captain feature, which is something we definitely recommend. We're kind of step back here a little bit. For company admins, we don't want to make this a ton of work on one person. We definitely don't want to do that. It can be. If it's one person, there can be quite a bit of organization that needs to happen to make this work. So we definitely recommend delegating it out. Whether you have additional admins, we've had companies with 4 or 5 admins, some with 1 or 2. It just depends on what works for you all. We also recommend using the sport captain feature, where an employee can be in charge of one particular event, say the bags tournament. And this is where it automatically asks these questions if people are interested to help you be able to organize. And so they're not required questions. They're open-ended, but at the same time, look for people to put yes or a Y or something in there if they're interested. We also ask a few other questions on certain sports like bowling. If you have people that bowl competitively, maybe you want to list an average, maybe you want to build a super team for bowling. It can build a social team or a fun team. Either one works. Oh, Crystal, I see your question about where the events will take place. It does not show up on this screen for that. It shows up on the event pages themselves. So let me get through this screen and then I can bounce back and show you a little bit for that. But I'm just going to say yes to the bags tournament there. And so now I have the events that I have registered for. As we talked about earlier, certain events like the unlimited events, there's no interaction needed to tell people that they're entered. And so you can see a green check mark, fitness walk, nature walk. The team sports, it shows as pending because we have to set teams for those. And so there's nothing that's been done yet. So it just says that it's pending whether or not I'm participating. Kristen, let me jump back here too for that. Mentioned here's the events pages. And so for example, bowling, this is where we get into the full detail. We don't have a good spot in the dashboard to show all that information. We don't want to clutter it too much. So if people are interested in bowling, they can put that down and now they can see exactly where it is. And we also do Google Maps in case they're not sure the location and everything. So that'll always be on the specific event pages. Dashboard too, always up in the upper right corner for people. They can always get in their dashboard that way. And if they're already logged in, they'll take them right there. This Burst Your Thirst dashboard button, we'll hide this after the meeting so people don't get confused by it. But once registration opens for Burst Your Thirst, we'll probably bring it back up. And this is where people can basically tunnel right through to their account. If they have an account set up already over there, as long as the username and the passwords match for the two accounts, it'll take them right over there. If they don't, they'll get an error screen that I'm going to get because I'm not in my normal account. And so give it a second here. Well, it should be loading an error screen for me here in a little bit, but basically we'll test this a little more, but the error screen will basically say that this didn't work and here's why. It'll explain it. And so people can then make sure the username and passwords match on both sides. And then it'll just tunnel them right over. So we haven't used that link yet, so we'll have to do some testing on that, make sure it's good. Then of course a log out button if people are using a public computer. Not everybody has a computer at their desk or at the office, and so that log out button's there so they can go ahead and log out of their account. All right, so moving on to the company administrator functions here. So event participation. This, in a nutshell, is where you tell us yes or no to teams. And so this will have some of the information that we've talked about, like on the event rosters and limits page. It shows for bags because you're allowed to have, let me pull it up on another page just so we can kind of show how this correlates over. So you can see here, bags, we allow 2 open teams, 2 people per team, essentially, and the company deadline. That matches up with what's on here. We have the deadline of July 7th at 5 p.m. We have 4 slots because you have 2 teams of 2. And the interested is showing how many people in your company have declared interest. And so I've kind of set up this fake company already with some information. I can go in and look and see that we have all of these employees interested. And if I want to set up a team, I can. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to put myself on a team. I'm going to add a few other people. And so here's another thing with this. Most events have 1 team. There's a few events that are few sports, team sports that allow you to have more than 1 team. So here's where you can choose 1 or 2 teams. You definitely want to do this if you're able. As you can see, when I put these people in, it didn't ask me which team I wanted them on. Now it will ask me which team. I should have done that first. And so now I can see that I can put people on certain teams and build my teams that way. And so the nice thing is for your employees, when you select them to be on a team, they're going to get an email on their side. There it is. And it tells me I've been added to a roster for my company, which for bags and the team that I'm on. And so then just kind of directs you to the website for information beyond that. If you're removed from a team, you'll also get an email saying you've been removed from a team. So, so you have that. The employees also have some feedback on their dashboard where it tells me now I am entered in bags and I'm on team 1. So with this, the question comes up sometimes, do I have to select no for all these people? You really don't. It's up to you on how you want to manage that because it'll just continue to say pending on these sports if it's not acted upon. But if you, for example, if I go to, I think bocce was one that I signed up for. If I say no for myself, I think I may get an email for that too, but it'll show right there with the red X that I am not on the bocce team. So that's now this piece where we're talking about putting people on rosters, that is internal for you. We don't need to know who's on a roster. We can't even see that, to be honest, on our side. Something I want to stress, and we'll probably talk about a little bit more yet, is on the team sports, we never need a roster. We simply need to know whether or not you have a team. If you tell us yes for bags, 2 teams, we'll schedule your company for 2 bags teams on there. Joan asking for companies that are combined with another. Will our dashboard show employees for both companies who express interest and are able to participate in a team? Yes, you will see. You'll see both. For in your case, you'll see Visit Quad Cities and the QC Chamber. So you'll see everybody on the same screen and can work together to put your teams together. So the part that we need to know on our end is the yes or no. And so here's where you can select an answer, again, by the deadline that's listed. Once it gets past 5 o'clock on July 7th, this will lock and you can't change it. Whether you acted upon it or not, you cannot change it at that point. And so then you'd have to contact us if there's an issue with that. So just keep an eye on that. Again, we'll have those emails every week that are saying, hey, don't forget, just a reminder, this is what's coming up for the deadlines. And so I've, of course, put my teams together. I have people. I'm going to select yes. And now it says yes. And so on our end, we'll get a report that we can pull and it'll tell us yes. And in parentheses, it'll say 2 teams. And then that's how we know to build our brackets with that. If you select no, it'll just say no. If you don't say anything, it'll just say no answer. And so we'll see that you didn't act upon it. And then we'll assume that, you don't have a team at that point. So this can be changed up until that deadline. So you can see it says yes right now. This, believe it or not, this is really been difficult for us to build something that has the feedback in it to make sure people understand whether it's selected yes or no. And because of course you're not going to, once you've selected and walk out of here, if you come back, you'll see that green yes. If you decide that you don't have teams before the deadline, just uncheck it and it'll say no. So whatever it's showing is what your current answer is. And if you do have questions about that, just ask. We can always pull it on our end, pull a little report and to see what it's showing for us, just to make sure it's clear. And we might even screenshot it for you, what your screen looks like to say, yep, this is why it's telling us what it says. So that's the part that we've had a little confusion on. We're trying our best to make this obvious as to what it is, but it isn't always the case. So all the team sports basically all work the same way. And you've got some options for viewing here. You can view everything on the same screen. You can just view the 10. If you want to look at specific sports, you can search as well. So all those options are there. And you can even sort it by the deadline, the number of slots, the number of teams, interested, everything else. And so you can see with our company, you can just do a quick glance, which is nice to get an idea of how many people are interested in these sports. So also on this screen, something that we've added that isn't required to use, but it may give you an opportunity to get a little more quick feedback on where you're at for things, the individual events. And obviously there's a lot when you factor in the age group, say for basketball, but let's say, for example, the fitness walk. You just want to see how many people have said they're interested in going to the fitness walk. You want to maybe get people rallied to come out to it. You can see, hey, we only have 6 people that said they're interested. Let's put out an email saying, hey, fitness walk is coming up. We'd like to meet and get a group picture and we can walk together and maybe go out for a drink or something afterwards, whatever works. But this is just a quick way. We have reports that we'll get into later, but this is just a quick way that you can go through those sports and look and see. And I can see I've got 4 people that are interested in the cycling ride, and maybe there's a few more people that haven't signed up yet. You also have the ability on the team and the individual activities. We give the admins a lot of different tools. And so if you've got employees that don't have a computer available to them as easily, they maybe want to sign up for something for the organization on your side, you can look them up in the system and add them here. So they have to be active in your system already, but you can add them to events then at this point. There's another spot we can do this too that I'll show you in a little bit. But that's just another option you have. Again, with these unlimited activities, you can see they were automatically put on the roster. You don't have to do anything as far as adding them or removing them. You can just leave that alone, and people can add and remove themselves as they wish. One other thing I want to point out is on the events, once somebody's been added to a team, they cannot remove themselves. If you see right here, the remove button is gone, and we do that on purpose for communication reasons. We don't want you as an admin, or if you have a sport captain that's doing bags, to go in and select the team members, and then someone decides they can't do it and they don't tell you. And now you have a situation where your team shows up and they're missing people that you weren't aware of. And so we take that ability away. That way they have to contact you or contact someone who's managing those teams in order to get themselves removed, because you can remove them on your side. The sport captain will be able to do that too, but they can't remove themselves anymore. All right, and so if you have questions about this, feel free to ask. This is probably the most complicated part, is the team piece or the event participation piece of this. We're happy to answer questions, help walk through specific examples too, especially as we get going with the games. Continuing on your dashboard here, real quick, I did not mention the full dashboard. We do have this news we'll get into in a little bit, but my dashboard as an admin looks a little different. Your employees will have a box up in the corner, right corner here, that says contact administrator. And what that is for is, say you have an employee that got into Corporate Games Manager, maybe someone told them how to get in, like, yeah, get your account set up, whatnot, and they have a question for the company admin, and they don't know who you are. They don't know who the company admin is. And so there's a button that they'll be able to push, and it basically gives them an opportunity to send an email to their company admins. And so if you have multiple people that are admins, it'll shoot the same email out to all of them. That way the employees can communicate with you directly. And that's, we prefer that as much as possible. Internal communication there. We prefer to communicate with the admins, just to kind of help throttle that communication a little bit. If employees reach out to us, we're going to help them too, but we may put them in contact with you as well if it's something that makes more sense for you to help them with. But so that's just something to know on this dashboard. So I mentioned before, the manage organization screen is right there. Again, that company code is listed right there. Manage captains. Here's where we get into the sport captain piece. And I'm going to add myself as a captain just to show you what it looks like. A normal employee, this company administrator menu, this section of the menu, they don't see that at all. So they just see this top section. And if someone gets added and you only see your active people, of course, all my other employees are fake, so they haven't actually finished setup account. But you can then see all the different events. You could add someone as a fitness walk sport captain. You could add someone as a cycling ride sport captain. You don't have to do that. Those are just in there as options in case you have an employee who wants to help organize that group. That would allow them to then see who has signed up and maybe reach out to that group to help further, give further instruction, give information on that. And so I'm going to sign myself up as a bag sport captain. And I see Yvonne, get a question from you. When an employee signs up on their dashboard, do they see all the company information or just what they're doing? On their specific dashboard, they will only see what they have signed up for. So if they haven't signed up for anything, this area will be blank. It'll say you do not have any, like down here, it talks about the volunteer assignments. But it'll just say you do not have any events. But on the sign up for events, it'll show them everything they're eligible for, which is based on their age group or gender and the division your company is in. So in this case, it's showing me not something we had to deal with this year with Quad Cities corporate games, but as we grow, some events for divisions are on different days. So Division 1 might be on June 5th, Division 2 on June 6th, just depending on what it is. And so it'll show them the specific day that their company is participating at that point. And so your other question was, does registration open at the same time for all events on May 10th, such as Berkshire Thirst? Registration for I'll back up. Declaring interest opens, technically it's open right now. So as soon as this meeting's over, we have this meeting on purpose before we open it up so that we can give all this information to everybody. But technically after this meeting, if you want to start getting employees in the system, absolutely go ahead. It's ready to go. We encourage it sooner than later, of course. We don't want to wait too long on that. But yeah, it'll be ready to go right now. And so on here, they can declare interest for Berkshire Thirst. This is probably one of the biggest confusions. And we have it on here just like Blood Donation Challenge. We want to have people to declare interest so that for organization or organizing purposes. So you can see on there if employees are interested in Berkshire Thirst and maybe target them directly when Berkshire Thirst opens. Besides, giving it out to everybody, this gives you a chance to say, hey, you said you were interested. Let's get you signed up, or here's how to get signed up now. Those would be the only two I would say that require a little bit more than just working in Corporate Games Manager, because the others are either virtual or in-person events that we're doing. But everything will show up right away for that. So I hope that answered the question, but if you have any others on there, happy to answer those too. So I'm gonna go back to that sport captain. You can see now I have a sport captain function on my dashboard because I'm a sport captain. As an admin, you don't have to sign up as a sport captain. You already have all those functions. So, but if you want to, just to make it easier for your screen, just to see who's a sport captain for what, that's fine. So you can see now when I clicked manage rosters, I've got the bags tournament listed because that's what I am a sport captain for. And now I can see, I can help set the number of teams. I can add people or remove people from rosters as a sport captain, not as the company administrator. This is we're in the different hat here. The one thing, and I can even add people as I believe as a sport captain, I can add people that aren't maybe have declared interest. The one thing I cannot do as a sport captain is tell the corporate game staff if we're going to have a team or not. We've kept that feature with the company admins just so there's no confusion, because we really don't want to have a sport captain say, oh, we're not going to have teams, but the company administrator knew that you're going to have teams, or the other way around. We don't want to create that confusion there. So so you as company administrators are the ones who can tell us that. And we've had some companies that would prefer to make people who are managing a group of sports, instead of just making them a sport captain, make them an administrator. Great. As long as you're okay with them having all the other access in there, not a problem. We can certainly do that. We'll get into that in a little bit, but adding an admin is easy. We have to do it, but it's really easy to do. So back to the managed captain screens, I can, as an admin, I can edit a sport captain. I can add sports for them. I can add, let me show you one thing. We do have one that's a little bit different with our basketball shooting competitions. Because there's age groups, we built a category for that. So if you want someone to be in charge of those events, you don't have to, but if you do, to get people out there, you can make them a sport captain for that. And so what they will see is, you can see it says category. It's not showing everything because there's age groups under that. So once they click on it, then they can see all the age groups and see how many people have signed up. Obviously, you don't have to set rosters for that, but if you want someone to, be able to monitor that and see how many people are signing up, that's an option. And so with the managed captains, you can also remove people. I will show you two quick. We do have a lot of emails set up for this. We have, like I said, I've been removed from a roster. That was showing up in my email. Also, every time I was added as a sport captain, it's giving me an email to tell me I've been added as sport captain for these events. So the email feedback has been pretty helpful with that. So because I don't need to be a sport captain myself, I'm going to just delete myself as a sport captain. And now that captain information has gone away. All right, moving on to the volunteer menu. Because I said on the manage organization screen that we want to provide volunteers, now I can see this. And you can see here where you can select preferences. These are the events that we plan to have volunteers at. And so you can pick which events. Again, being the first year, you may not know, so it may not be crucial to do this. If you don't want to select preferences, that's okay. We'll still assign you volunteers. We just get to pick which spots we put you at. And I would just hit save here. Once it's saved, it is locked in place. If you made a mistake, let us know. I personally have made a mistake with it. Thankfully now on our end, we can change it. When we initially set it up, we couldn't. So if you hit save, it will just lock that in for you. I'm not going to, just not to mess anything up on this end. Your assignments, when you have them, they'll show up down here, and I'll give you an example because I mentioned the open assignments and the ability to claim open assignments. I'm going to claim this one. It came up. Normally they'll be in pairs. I simply did it as a one just to make an easy test. So now you can see it's under our assignments. So when we assign spots for your company, they will show up down here. Any open assignments will show up just like it did. And we, a lot of times we'll put in that admin email saying, hey, this week we'll have some assignments coming up, and we'll tell you what they are in case your company is interested in taking them. You'll know when they're available. Sometime that week we'll have them open like at 8 a.m. or something like that. So now we have an assignment for our company. Here's where I can assign people. And there's two ways to do this. You can assign an employee, so someone that has a corporate games manager account and is in your system and has said they're interested in volunteering. So my company, 100%, everybody said they want to volunteer. So now I have all these people that are interested. I'm going to add myself so I can show you what the kind of feedback on that is. So very simple. It says, you know, this assignment needed 1 volunteer. You have 1 assigned. Perfect. You're already set. Shows the name, shows the email. And again, they will get an email that tells them they've been assigned a volunteer spot, tells them the event, the task, the location, the date and the time, all right there. If I remove somebody, you can certainly do that too. And now I'll use that so I can show you assigning a non-employee. You have the ability to do that, say, because again, they come in pairs. Say you have like an employee and their spouse that want to volunteer. One of them doesn't work for the company. You can still assign them and put their name in. The name is required. The email address is not. So you could put an email address in, or you can just leave it open. But at least you're going to see now who's been assigned to that and that it's covered. And so when we go back onto the volunteer screen, it gives you some feedback there. What it'll show you that you've assigned 1, or the number that you have been assigned, which could be 1 or 2, or will be 2, and it'll show you how many spots you've filled in that. So you got some feedback there. And we'll show you in the reports too how you can see these things again. So the Manage Employees menu, this is where all of your employees who have an account are going to show up. And of course, this year, everybody's going to be active if they have an account. If you do the games multiple years, you may have employees in there that haven't set up their account or maybe aren't with the company anymore. And so we've got a few different options here. You can go in and you can edit their information if necessary. You can see that t-shirt size question we added earlier is on here. And so if you need to do something for an employee, maybe it's easier for you to do it, or they don't have access to a computer as easily, you can do that for them. Ideally, they do it for themselves, of course, just makes it easier, but we have these options built in. Events, you can see the events everybody has signed up for. This is exactly what they see on their dashboard. So you can see this particular person was added to a bags team. Of course, they're participating in cycling automatically and are pending on a couple of other events. You can remove them. I mentioned earlier the ability that they can't remove themselves. You can remove them though. And you can also add events to that person. And now it will show the events that she is eligible for. It shows the women's team for 3-on-3 basketball. It's not showing what I'm eligible for. It shows her age group for basketball shooting. So you can easily add events for somebody if they weren't able to add them for themselves. And then the other option on here is to remove them. That removes them from the company. They still have an account in the system, but they no longer are tied to your company, which means if they were to log in, they're not going to see the ability to sign up for events or anything like that. So that could be useful if you have people leave the company, makes it easier for you. The other thing it shows is their role. You can see that I'm the only admin here. Everybody else is just an employee. This is where if you need to add an admin or want to add someone after they have an account, that's the easiest way for us to do it, honestly, is if they already have an account, just tell us who it is, give us their email address, and then we can go in and on our side, we can toggle this from employee to admin. It takes 2 seconds, so don't feel bad asking. It's very, very easy for us to do. And we want to make sure you have the people in the system that have the admin access that you want. So that's pretty easy for us to do. Also, there's a couple ways for people to set up an account. If you want to invite them into the system, just like we're going to invite you after this meeting, you can send them an email through here and hit invite, and it'll basically be the same thing, that email you saw from me. It'll be the exact same thing, except they won't be an admin. It'll just be as an employee, but you can do that. We don't really recommend it. We prefer people go in and set up their own account. It's good for them to get in that way. It's cleaner, for one thing. And with this, you can do multiple email addresses, but this could trigger a spam alert too, because there may be some of you today that don't get our email, and that's when we have to go in and do it manually. And so if you have them go to the website, if they have the company code, set up an account is really easy, just takes a few seconds. So it's better in general to let people do it, but we do have this option in here in case that works better for you. All right, so managing news. As I mentioned earlier in this dashboard, this news piece here, this is us. This is our staff. It shows on everybody's dashboard in every company. And so we will update that throughout the summer. We encourage people to look at it. You can see we've got some basic information. We have some COVID-19 guidelines we have in place in general for sports right now, and that'll probably change. So we definitely want people to keep looking at that. We have our calendar events, a point system, just some some quick links, some things that people may want to see to get a little more familiar with the games. And so, but there's another spot down here. It's not showing up yet because we haven't added anything, but you can put your own news on for your employees. And so we're just going to do a quick one here, but very simple. I'm just going to call it test. If you have the ability to do HTML, if you want to put in links, this is kind of a more dynamic little editor that you can use for that. You don't have to. It's whatever your level of comfortability is, and how you choose to use the news is up to you. I will say we've had some companies use it for announcements, others that may, if they have on their on their own side, they might be organizing teams, or they might list who is in charge of certain teams. Then list their email addresses to get a hold of those people. So I've seen all kinds of things when I've worked with companies on how to use this. And so very simple to set up a news item, and then you can either publish it or you can unpublish it. So we're going to go ahead and publish that. And you'll see now that it is published. I can easily go back in and uncheck it and hit save and unpublish it. So very simple. And then it'll show that it's not published, but we're going to publish this just so that we can show you what it looks like. So now if I go back to the dashboard, now I have another news piece here. So I can see this. And again, all of your employees will be able to see it. All right, so this is the report area, and this is something, once you have some employees in here, I encourage you to play around with it just to see what the reports look like. I don't want to go through all of them and take up a bunch of time, but essentially there's a couple different ways that when employees declare interest, I will show you these because I do have people in here to show. There's a couple, so first of all, these two, they're the same name, but they have a little bit different function. You got the summary and the detail. The summary, everything downloads as a CSV file or an Excel file for you to see. And so I'm going to pull this one. You can pull, if you don't have to put any events, like we just have one category, but we have all the different events. You can pull it by event if you choose, or you can pull all the events. And that's what I'm going to do because that's really what the best use of this is. But we put the categories in there in case you want to do something specific, or the second level of filtering there. One second here. There we go. And so the summary, what the summary does is it's showing everybody that's an employee that's in the system, signed up for events. It's showing, for example, I signed up for several events. They're all in one line. Everybody has their own row. So this can be useful if you want to send out a mass email. You can quickly grab the email addresses. You would just want to see some basic information. They're very simple, but they have a lot of different uses, or they could have different uses for you. So we've kept them kind of generic for that reason. And then the participant by users detail, this is where it might be more useful to set it by a certain event, but I'm going to pull everything just so you can see what it will look like. And the detail basically is what it's going to do is give you everybody that signed up for anything, they each have a row for each of they have a row for each event they signed up for, essentially. So I've signed up for, appears to be 8 events, and so I'm listed 8 times. And then so this is where you may just want to pull a certain event just to look quickly at it and pull the email addresses for somebody. You may want the whole thing so you can sort it and see all the statuses, send emails for specific events, gives you timestamp when people signed up. That's another thing I didn't mention earlier, that depending on how you want to do teams, some people will do first come, first serve. Well, now you know who signed up when. So the time zone is off a little bit, but it's consistent at least with that. So you'll be able to see that and know when someone actually signed up for an event. But yeah, it kind of gives you some information there. And then real quick, these other reports, the volunteer reports, will show you all the people that have said yes to volunteering. So if you, for example, had a volunteer spots open and you have a list of people that are interested, you could pull that report, grab their email addresses quick, and then send them an email. Just copy and paste it into Outlook, for example. That's a nice feature for that. The company question report, this is the questions we asked where I asked the t-shirt size. This is where you'll see the participants' information and the answers to those questions. The event questions report, that is where you'll see the answers for, say, the sport captain question that we were asking earlier when people signed up. So similar report to the last one, but specific to those events. And then the volunteer assignment report, if you need to quickly look and see how many, you know, it's not, we don't have a lot of volunteer spots, but if your company's really ambitious and you grab some extra ones, you can see the people that you've assigned, you know, and what they're assigned to. So that's a nice one there. And then this check-in report, that's, we talked about check-in earlier. This is where you can pull a list to see who has checked in. I'm not going to pull that because it'll be empty right now, but that's where you can see by event. You can pull specifically by a certain event. You can pull for every event. I will say it's a little early to talk about this, but at the end of the year, when we're all done, I would recommend pulling one of those that has everything. And then you've got a list for next year of who signed up for what, or who checked in for what and who participated. It's a kind of a quick way to get started in the future too, once we've got a year under our belts. All right, so I think that kind of covers everything here. Just a reminder, we don't need rosters. We do get asked that occasionally. I do want to emphasize that. Say the bags tournament's coming up in a couple days and we'll get an email from a company saying, hey, so-and-so can't make it, but this person's going to replace them. And my answer is great, because it doesn't really matter to us who's there. As long as you have the number of employees needed to participate, they've checked in and it, you know, fits the parameters, you know, if it's a co-ed, whatever, making sure that the right number of employees are there. That's great. That's what we need to know. We don't need to know who it is until they come. So I just want to emphasize that one more time. That's a big one. And then, I'm going to do a little demo of our check-in system here real quick, just so you can see what this looks like when you come to an event. And I will say, we have a couple different ways to use this. This would be more for an in-person event. When we have events virtually, on each event page, and let me backtrack here a second. I think these pages are already set up for it. But you can see here that explains what this virtual cycling tour ride is. And then it says, click here for a check-in code. And we've got dates of when it'll be active. And so this will be a link to a QR code. It'll pop up on your screen. You can use your smartphone, take a picture of it. If you have people that do not have smartphones, we'll also add a link in there that they can use to check in without a smartphone. So we do have a couple options for that. The system was built for in-person use, but it does work pretty well for these virtual events as well. So, so we do kind of want to make sure we have a good setup for that everybody can use it. So this is what you'll see more of when you come to an event, and very simple to use. You just click the big button. If there's an event that's checking in, there won't be anything listed there if there's no events active. So we have that tested check-in event I was talking about. I of course have 2 accounts. You can search by first name, last name, however you want to search. I suggest last name. Right now there's not a lot of people in there, but someone like me named Matt is pretty common. There can be 3 pages of Matt. So you're better off just putting in your last name. Hit select user. I just hit check in here. And there you go. Now it's ready for the next person. And but this is what you'll see too. If you're using your phone to check in, you will see this. And this is where we say to show us on site, show our volunteers you have checked in, show your phone, because you'll see this green bar that says you successfully checked in. That's the important piece. That's the confirmation that everybody needs to see. And we have on our website, real quick, I'll show you. We do have some instructions for employee registration, event check-in, and just a couple quick pages. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but just so you know, it's there. And on that, we also have showing that green check-in success thing. So we want to make sure that people are aware that that's what they're looking for. A little tip for people is we found it works easier if, say, you're going to use your phone that you're already logged in on Corporate Games Manager from your phone. Makes it really easy because it may ask you to log in when you do that. Just a little check to make sure that you're not checking in other people that aren't actually there. So that makes it go really smooth. And again, it just takes a few seconds to do. What makes it take longer is if you don't have an account. So if we're looking for somebody, and I have someone in there with a common last name, but say that's not the right person and they haven't set up their account yet, now here's where it takes longer. Now we have to create a new account. And so we have to go through the entire process of putting in their information, selecting the company, all the questions that they would get asked otherwise. And so that, you know, we can handle that. We can help you out with that, but it does take longer. We want to make it easier. So the easiest thing to do is just make sure that that account is all set up beforehand. And I'll do one more thing here quick. I am going to go and show you what it looks like to create a new account. And so pretend that's not in there. The new users register up here. People forgot their password. You got a link for that as well. We're going to create a new user here. Of course, it wants to pull in my information. So I'm not going to actually create it, but I'm going to show you how this works. Everybody puts in their information, and here's where that company code piece is. That's what I want to show you. It's red until a company code that's valid shows up, and it gives you instant feedback. Will tell you you're signed up for the right company. We do try to make the codes different enough. You know, if companies have similar names, we don't want to confuse people that way. So you do have that instant feedback right there that'll allow it to be connected to your company. So once they fill out the information, it'll take them to their waiver page and be good to go. So that in a nutshell is Corporate Games Manager. All right, real quick here, we're going to go through some strategies for success for the corporate games, some things that we've seen over time as we've worked with the different companies and the things that have helped them out. And number one is definitely communications. Can you send company-wide emails? Not everybody can, depending on the size of the company and everything that's going on. The emails definitely help. I'll give an example of, you know, we have some companies that we've had participate that are over 1,000 people that cannot do that, but we've had one that had about 2,500 people and they could. And so through their fitness center, you know, it just depends on how you can work that, whether it's something that HR has to approve or a wellness committee, you know, a wellness email. If you can send out an email, targeted email to your employees in the Quad Cities, that's really big because again, right in their inbox, you know, that email sample we showed you is a great example. That was the company that I was talking about where we got that from. The first time we did corporate games with that company, we saw like within 10 minutes, 90 people signed up for accounts. It was crazy. And so huge, you know, just that was clear that was what works the best. But any way that you can distribute information to groups of employees. Obviously we have the flyers, we have the table tents, the posters, getting in front of a group, you know, does a wellness committee maybe do a breakfast one morning and get people in to talk about corporate games? And that might be something we can get involved in, you know, whether it be in person or over Zoom, do a little presentation to explain to employees and answer some questions. We're happy to do that. But if you feel that you can run that, then great, you know, to do something like that to help get people interested. And not everybody might show up to that meeting, but that might spread then throughout the organization. You know, ask people, tell people, spread the word about it. Word of mouth is huge for the corporate games. Utilizing the admin tools, like we mentioned, there's all the flyers, the posters, the sample email. Utilize those pieces. If there's something that would be helpful that we don't have in there, we're happy to put it together. So just ask the question and we can see what we can do for you. You know, we love being able to make certain things that'll fit the companies, and then others can use them too, which is the great thing. Mentioned, you know, doing a breakfast, or if you have a lunch and learn, a health fair, anything else, let us know. This year might not be the year for that, but we're happy to try and come out, get a staff member there to talk to people. We've had a company in the past that we were having trouble getting people sign up. After a couple of years participating, they told us about a health fair they're doing. It's like, we will come out to your health fair and we will get people, because they couldn't send out emails, but if people gave us their email address, then we could send one out with information for how to sign up and get involved. And once they were in the system in Corporate Games Manager, it made it a lot easier because now they're part of the communications. They know what's going on, and that's where the company started to see participation go up. Yvonne, yep, you have a question about this is a lot of information. You're absolutely right. And you've got some emails. First priority is to do right away, a checklist sorts. That's a great question. I would say the first thing to do would be to look at that admin toolkit, look at that sample email, and start getting employees going in the system. You know, look at getting information out to the employees to start getting them to declare interest. And then that's the key. That's really the biggest thing, because once you have employees that are interested in helping, the other thing, I don't know if you have anybody yet that's helping you do the admin duties, but as part of that, maybe in that email, see if there's anybody else that's interested. I don't know if you have a wellness committee, maybe to say something to is like, hey, we could use some help, you know, organizing this. It just it's one of those things that it starts to naturally spread. Once you get that information out, then you start to have people like, yeah, I would like to be involved in this. I'd like to do that. That's the biggest thing. That's step number one, I would say. And then we'll start sending you all emails. Once we get in, further into April, beginning of May, we'll start putting out things saying now is a good time to maybe communicate about what's coming up, make sure people are getting involved. Bowling's the first event, make sure that you're getting ready to put teams together if you're planning to have bowling teams. So we just kind of slowly help build that. It is a flood of information, absolutely, and so it's hard to do all of it at once. But that's probably the biggest thing, is to start there with just getting that information out, start getting the word out, because then that generates questions too from employees, and that's where we can kind of jump in. It's hard to predict exactly what those are in a lot of ways. It's always a little bit different, but that'll kind of help get things going. And we'll have I don't think I mentioned this in the admin toolkit. I actually probably doing this in the next couple of days, is creating a little kind of a mini webinar for employees saying, what is the corporate games? I'll be putting that together. We'll stick it up on our YouTube channel. This will be up on our YouTube channel as well, if anybody else in the company needs to watch it. But we'll put a much shorter version, maybe like 20 minutes, on our YouTube channel, and put that link on the admin toolkit that you can then send out to employees as well if you'd like. So we just need to put that together, and won't take very long. Just need to take some time to get that one done now that this meeting's taken care of. But that's where I would say start. And keeping going with this, I mentioned delegation, of course, talked about that a little bit there. A lot for most of you, this is probably in other duties as assigned, or something you said you're interested in, and great, looks like you got it on your plate. I've been there, I've been that employee, so I get it. It adds work to your plate. It definitely does. And so the more you can spread out the responsibilities, the better. I mentioned committee, sometimes to spread out the admin duties. Of course, we talked about the sport captain function. Some of that kind of happens naturally as you go. You may not know right now who those people are in the company that want to help, but you may find them very quickly once the information's out, and you're putting together, you're sending that email out, and people are starting to show interest and asking about it. Some of that will come out of there fairly quickly there. And being the first year, that's probably the hardest. It really is, because people don't know what it is. And you don't know who the people in your company are necessarily that might be, the champions of this. And so that's where we're kind of building the road for that. And as it gets going, in our other corporate games, we did a little study one time on participation, and the second year was 70% better participation than the first for most companies. That was the average. Not everybody saw that, and some saw a lot more. So it sometimes gets slow to start, and that's our job, is to try to make it so it's not so slow to start, to get people interested and get them going right away. But I'd also say finding your company's strengths. Not every company participates in everything. Don't get overwhelmed by the number of events. We simply want to create a lot of opportunities, but you don't have to do everything. Now, the companies that win, will they have done more things than others? Probably. That's kind of natural, but that doesn't mean that it's, as much as we love to tout winning the cup, winning the trophies, that isn't everything. There's a lot of outcomes that the corporate games provides. And so just getting people out, and even if they're completely not competitive and they just had fun at sand volleyball and now they're spending some time together afterwards, great. That's a positive outcome. That's just as good as winning. So, you can find some strengths, you can focus on certain things, kind of maybe some baby steps, get going. We purposely start the corporate games with some easier events. Bowling's an easier one to organize, both on the company and on our end. The fitness walk is an easy one to organize. So we kind of start those just to get people introduced and get them going. And it's helpful on our side with our intern and everything else too, learning kind of what their role is. So other thing, ask questions. Talk about that a lot. We're always happy to help out. Email is the best way. If we need to, we're happy to schedule time one-on-one to have a phone call. Utilize the info on the website. If there's something missing, we'll add it. That certainly comes out of those questions sometimes. And Yvonne asking about the PowerPoint being sent out. We'll put it on the website as well. It'll be in that admin toolkit. Once we're done here, we'll save it as a PDF, and we'll post it up there as well. So definitely go to that admin toolkit. All of these things will be in there. Let's see. Going through my notes here, seeing if there's anything I missed. Again, our goal is to have as much info as possible available for employees, kind of like we've been talking about. Anything that we can provide to get people to participate, but it does kind of, fall on the companies too to internally market. We won't, and actually we really don't have email addresses yet, but we generally, even in returning years, we don't send out information directly to employees right away. We give you guys some time because we know that not everybody has time to go out today and boom, start getting people into Corporate Games Manager and get going. We certainly encourage that, this week yet, definitely next week for sure. But by late April is when we might start putting some information out just to kind of, rally things a little bit too. But we try to kind of keep quiet about it for a little bit just to give you time to get everything organized. We don't want to step on toes either. But as you mentioned before, we'd love to have this in person because I know after this meeting, we can be standing off to the side just answering questions, one-on-one talking to people, something we can't do today. But we're happy to answer questions here in the chat and hang around for a little bit to answer your questions there. And then even talk later on. We can talk offline, to answer any questions you have. So like I said, ask questions. We're happy to answer them. Speaking of questions, we're open for questions. So if you have any questions right now, feel free to type them in the chat, type them in the question and answer area where I've got both of those up on the screen to look at here. Again, I mentioned this earlier, if you want to do some employee sessions, probably over Zoom this year would be my guess. It's probably the best way to do it, but we're happy to do that. We've got that, I mentioned that webinar that we're going to be recording here in a couple of days. I'll pull back up the website too, just to kind of show you where some of those things are again. But under Admin Toolkit, you see the recording of this presentation. That'll happen after this meeting. It takes a little bit of process, but we'll get it put up on our YouTube channel so that it's available there for anybody. And the slides, we'll also put them up on right here as well. We'll link them. We've got our admin manual for Corporate Games Manager. I'll show you that now. I didn't want to show it before we actually went through Corporate Games Manager, but this kind of covers everything. Gives you the details on what all of the menu pieces does. We've got screenshots, got examples. So do check that out. We've got the Corporate Games Manager information for employees. That was on the homepage, but we also have it listed here. And this is, I'll go through this a little bit closer, but tells you, what the dashboard has on it, how to indicate interest in events, how will I know if I've included an event roster, who do I contact if I have questions, checking in. So that's all here too for employees. So feel free if you send out an email to link some of these things so they can take a look at them. The information video I mentioned earlier, we'll record that here probably, might even be today, maybe tomorrow. I'll try to get that recorded. We want to get all of you taken care of first, but we'll get that posted. And that'll be available too for people to view. And those are, I would say, those are some of the big pieces. And then your promotional information, that sample email again, now that we've talked a little bit more about it, might be a little more relevant. So let me pull that back up. All right, so I'll leave that up on the screen here a little bit. You can kind of see what we've put together, but just some basic information about what the Corporate Games is. We're participating as a company. That's in there. Lists the events that we have. Tells you how to set up your account. This is where you can put a company code into those emails. And then we have the employee instructions I just showed you. That's linked in here as well. And then just a little bit of information there, registration's required, what the different events, the asterisks mean, and participation is free. That's the big thing too, is to make sure employees know that there is no cost for them to participate. The only thing we have in here is if they're on one of the golf teams and they want to use a cart, they'd pay for their cart fee. We cover the greens fees for the golf, but carts are on their own. But if they're on the bowling team, shoe rental, lane fees, all that's covered. They show up and bowl and can grab a drink at the bar if they want. That's on their own, but they could do that on their own then that way. So that's another nice thing. There's no hurdles to this. There's no cost. People just get to show up and play. All right. Anybody has any other questions? We'll hang out here for a couple minutes, but otherwise you are free to go. I'm going to stop the recording and we'll just hang out here for a little bit.